Yeah, not that one.
No, different artist entirely.
Should we close the door?
Yeah. Ooh. Then I'll leave you to do it, Myers. Oh yes. We don't talk about that.
Why?
We're filming. I'm gonna get cancelled. I'll tell you later.
That's so ominous. Hello and welcome back to yet another video. The first in a while.
Mm-hmm.
One of the longer breaks we've taken between recording, at least.
Indeed, yeah.
Because there was a long break between episodes, but that was because I hadn't edited it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been keeping up my end of the bargain and turning up to the shoots.
But obviously, last time you've seen both of us together was Genesis.
Yep, if you're not including the Christmas episodes.
In person.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
And we did announce that our next discography was going to be The Pretenders, a choice made by Sam.
Yeah.
What did you know of The Pretenders before going in?
So, everyone knows by now that I am an 80s guy, and The Pretenders are quite involved in 80s music, or at least they were with my exposure to 80s music. So I knew a lot of the big hits when I was growing up, such as Don't Get Me Wrong, Brass in Pocket. A lot of them actually were songs that I knew, but I'd never connected them to the same band. And it was only as I started exploring my musical tastes and sort of finding songs that I know I like and finding out who they're by, that I'm like, oh, that was also by The Pretenders. Oh, that was also by The Pretenders. And when I went to see Fleetwood Mac in 2019, The Pretenders supported them.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And
that's quite the Sam doubleheading.
I know,
with
right?
Neil Finn there as well.
And yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
And what was great is that I went to see Fleetwood Mac with my mum, and she ended up actually enjoying The Pretenders more. So that was quite a story. Cool, yeah. Maybe she should be here instead of me. But here I am. You know, I've been cast instead of her. She didn't get the gig. I really enjoy The Pretenders, and I've seen them live. So one of only 3 of the artists that we covered that I have.
How many albums did you know going in?
Well, I had a collection.
Which you thought, I remember we talked about, you thought those were the only albums they had.
Yeah, I did. Right up until we agreed we were going to do the discography, and then I found out that there's more than double. Yeah. And I've got another story to tell about that collection of 5 albums, which we'll come to later on. But yes, I'd heard 4 out of 5 of those CDs that I had. So I had quite a good understanding of the earlier years.
No, the first 5 albums, yeah. Were they?
We'll get to that.
We'll get to it, okay. Okay, so I guess I'll kick us off.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Sam, I'm going to have to measure your expectations a little bit here.
Okay.
I feel like you will have enjoyed this a lot more than I did.
Let's see.
So my number 11, I mean, I don't think it's that controversial a bottom album. It's Loose Screw, which is their 8th album. By this point, I was quite exhausted by this. And I needed a bit of a change. And you know what? I'm always the one in Depeche Mode. I remember I said I need a bit of a change sometimes in a big discography.
Yes, yeah.
I was wrong to want to change because this is a negative change for me. There's a lot more of an influence on like reggae and like the 2000s pop style, like girl groups in the songwriting, and I just don't think it works. I think some of their worst songs are on this album. I think Lie to Me is pretty cookie cutter, and Complex Person is quite cheesy. Nothing Breaks Like a Heart, as I mentioned, is sort of an example of that sort of reggae style that they did. And earlier years they pulled it off a lot better than here. I also think this does feature their worst song ever, which is Walk Like a Panther, where Chrissie Hynde is trying to sound sexy at age 52, and it made me feel a little bit sick. But that said, I can't really say there's any songs I take away that I love, but it's not a disaster. It's not like Calling All Stations for me. I like it more than that.
Right, okay.
Other than
it's
that,
not saying much, is it?
Yeah, other than that album, it's probably my lowest we've done. It's a 4 out of 10.
All right.
I think it's quite poor.
Okay.
But probably not the worst thing ever.
Okay, cool. Loose Screw, not the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, put that on the cover. Right, well, that's not too bad to me, because the second half of the discography was, in general, a challenge to get through for me. we made some predictions to each other before going in.
Oh, did I get it right?
Yeah, you did. Number 11's Break Up the Concrete, which is just piss poor. And it is the first time I've gone below a 5. We're at 4 here. Thoroughly didn't enjoy it. After a few albums of quite monotonous sound, Break Up the Concrete just dipped below what I consider legible music. And I don't really remember much of it, apart from the titular song and the hook of just Break Up the Concrete. And it's kind of a source of trauma.
That is hilarious.
I'm sorry, Chrissy Hind. I do love you, and you've still got it now in your 70s, but that's in your singing and not in your songwriting, because Break Up the Concrete is not good.
Well, that is very... I think we're going to have very different lists.
Oh, really?
And I made that guess because it is... We'll get to Break Up the Concrete. It's a very different album
It
for them.
is.
And it's more of a me sound than a you sound, I feel like.
Break Up the Concrete.
We'll get to that. So, my number 10,
Mm-hmm.
I think... Oh, I do worry now, because my issues did not only lie in the second half of the discography.
Okay,
My number 10...
that's interesting.
Well, I guess this one's technically in the second half, but my number 10 is Last of the Independents,
Right.
which is the 6th album,
Yeah.
1994, which I actually think is one of the greatest years in music history. I think it's a very stacked year. This does not really contribute to it. There are... Other than like with Elliott Smith, the worst is behind us now.
Mm-hmm.
We're slowly getting better. There's
Yeah.
a couple good songs on this. I think Hollywood Perfume is a pretty cool sort of rocking, upbeat opener. Kind of reminds me of like Acton Baby era U2, which is an era of U2 I actually like, which is rare.
Yeah.
And obviously I'll Stand By You is very good.
It's a great song, yeah.
I wrote down maybe the most John Lewis advert music ever made. Which is definitely a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
But it's still a compliment.
And the thing is, John Lewis wouldn't even play that version. They've got to have a
Yeah,
sick,
true.
watered-down cover.
Speaking of sick, watered-down covers, the only song I genuinely dislike on this album is the cover of Bob Dylan's Forever Young.
Right.
I'm a big fan of Bob Dylan. I
Yeah.
think the cover is pretty pointless and doesn't add much to it. It's not bad. It's way too long. There are a few highlights, and I just think the sound of this album is quite bland, and I don't really find it that exciting. So Last of the Independents is my number 10. It's up to a 5.
Right.
It's passable. I never really want to listen to it again. In full.
Fair enough. You know, I'm not gonna dismiss your points, but we will be coming to that a little bit later on, because I've got bigger problems with some of the other albums, which I'm surprised haven't come up yet for you. Coming back to my album collection of what I thought was the entire discography of the Pretenders. To answer your question, Tom, no, it wasn't the first 5 albums.
Right.
It was Pretenders, Pretenders 2, Learning to Crawl, Get Close, and then it jumped to the Last of the Independents. And the one in between is my number 10, which is Pact.
Oh dear Sam, we are so different.
Are
on
we?
it. Yeah.
I added to my playlist, how many did I add from it? Because it's quite embarrassing. 4 songs from it, which was Never Do That, Let's Make a Pact, When Will I See You, and Criminal Live, which I'm not 100% certain is part of the album or not, but
It is.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows you how far removed I am from listening to the discography, because I'm like, did I actually mean to listen to that song? But those are the ones I've saved. I'm still at a 4 here.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not expect this.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think we disliking each other as much as when we were in Genesis.
I don't think either of us care that much.
No.
Let's be honest.
No. This is just like an interesting social experiment, if anything.
Yeah.
No, Pact was difficult. I think it was a little bit... I'm trying to remember. It's quite an aggressive sound, I think. Is it? Or is it
No,
tepid?
not at all.
It's
It's
tepid.
very... Yeah. It's,
No,
it's
I'll
quiet,
tell
yeah.
you, there isn't a loud one that I'm getting confused with that I'm going to come to
Yeah.
very quickly. No, Pact, I think, yeah, that's right. It was really watery, and I didn't get enough out of it. I mean, the first 4 albums haven't appeared on the list yet, so you know I think more of them than this. I
Yeah.
won't give away any more than that. But after listening to those and then coming across this, I was like, oh, Chrissy, what are you doing? Especially when you're combining that with the surprise that the album existed at all. Because in my collection that I got, they didn't include
I think they tried. It is definitely, you're definitely going to be the more popular with this opinion because most people hate it. I think there's a reason that they skipped it on that compilation because
they went straight to last to the
were trying to pretend they didn't make it.
It's just not canon.
Yeah.
And so that is very interesting, and I agree with the decision to not try. Let's just try and put a blanket over it. Tom disagrees, but I'm really interested to find your opinions on it.
I think it will speak a lot to what we like about the Pretenders and what we don't like about the Pretenders when I get to it. I think your points make sense, but not to me. That makes sense.
It's looking a lot less likely that we're going to sync up on anything, so this is going to be is going to be fun.
My number 9.
Yeah.
We're sticking in the second half of the discography as you can expect. I mean, at least we're both doing that. At
Yeah.
least we're both sort of not going with the big albums yet.
Yeah.
My number 9 is Hate for Sale, the final album from 2020. My first... Sorry, these are some of the funniest notes I've written because I was so checked out. The first note I wrote was 30 minutes long. Mercy. So,
the best part of the album was that it was quite short.
Because obviously Loose Screw and Last of the Independents are both for 50 minutes or so, which is just too long. Yeah,
they were definitely a bit of a struggle.
And I think the best thing I can say about Hate for Sale is that they don't sound their age. There's a good bit of momentum on the album.
She's got a good singing voice even now.
They're going for the more punky style, which I don't love Chrissie Hynde's vocals with the punky style, I've got to be honest. I prefer her on the slower songs. I think she fits them better, which may explain why Pact hasn't come up for me yet, because there's not much in terms of energy on that album. I think The Buzz is probably the best song on here. It's nice and jangly. I've also put Lightning Man, more white reggae, yuck. So to me this followed 2 good albums that I did enjoy, the 2 before this one. So I was a bit more optimistic, and then this sort of brought me back down. So it goes a lot quicker than the bottom 2, as I sort of alluded to, and has some nice moments. It's only 30 minutes long. Will I ever listen to it again? Definitely not. 5 out of 10.
Right, okay.
Hate for Sale.
You said you enjoyed the last couple of albums before that.
Yeah.
Right, well my number 9's Alone.
Wow.
We are now at a 5.
Okay.
So we're neck and neck now in terms of our ranking.
And your 5 is not good. Like that's been bottomed out on most discographies.
We're with all of them until now.
Even Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Alone was interesting. I've saved quite a few songs on there. Oh no, still 4.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot better, and maybe that's because I'm kind of giving credit for Chrissie Hynde still kind of having it, even well into her 60s, which, Stevie Nicks doesn't. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call that out.
She did it in 2003, never mind now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only reason I make that comparison is because I saw them both perform on the same night. Yeah. And we had Chrissie Hynde, who in 2019 there's only 4 years between them.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
And then Stevie Nicks came on, and she was depending on everyone else, really. I mean, everyone else... Sure, Christina V also couldn't sing anymore, but I don't know if she was ever really able to sing that well. But rest in peace, Christine, You're a great songwriter, even if you couldn't really pull off singing them. Totally unrelated, and just going to get me cancelled in a Pretenders video.
Yeah.
I love Christina V, really. Bless her. Back to Alone. Alone is very loud, very punky, and very shouty. And that's my problem with it. I kind of liked some of the more rougher, rugged Pretenders albums, but this, I think, went too far. You really can't be shouting this much now, can you? How much like hate do you have? Yeah. Like at this point in your career?
Well, she had plenty of it, because the next album, The Hate Was For Sale.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry.
It's all right. I've just slagged off a musical legend
who's just died.
I think your silly dad joke is not going to be the worst part of this video.
Yeah,
this is why he gets me in. I just make things worse.
Like you said, you're a great sponge.
Yeah, quite
for controversy.
Yeah, that's about as much as I have to say about Alone. It's middle ground. Yeah.
So quite disappointing.
It was quite disappointing, but I found a lot of the albums in the second half disappointing because they existed.
Okay, so number 8. This is where my list gets a bit well, I thought last week Independence was controversial, but
Yeah.
it gets a bit worse. My number 8 is Get Close. 1986, the 4th album. I'm up to a 6. I think it's decent.
Right.
But I was disappointed. The other album from 1986 we've covered, Invisible Touch. Not saying it's a very similar sound, but it's not too dissimilar. It's quite bombastic and synthy. It feels very overblown and cheesy to me. The sound of this album is just so like arena ready, they call it, where it's like
ready for live performance.
Yeah, and it's too much. It's just like big synths and all the songs are these big passionate ballads, and it's just like ugh. Don't get me wrong, there is a brilliant song on here, but I just can't remember the name. There are a couple other good ones as well, which are kind of marred a bit more by the production, like My Baby and Hymn to Her, which I do think are good bits of songwriting, but the sound kind of drags it down a little bit. The reason it gets up to number 8, despite not being my thing at all, which was disappointing because the one song I knew going in, I loved, and none of the rest of the album sounds anything like it.
True.
And yeah, the reason it gets higher than you know
the
other ones is because of the high highs that propel it above. So
often the way. Get
Close is my number 8, and it didn't really get close to medal position.
No, indeed, because it's number 8.
Yeah.
My number 8, also not getting close to medal position, is fortunately one you've already said, and it's Loose Screw.
Yeah. No.
Which I definitely got more out of it than you.
Yeah.
But your criticisms are definitely valid. It's not an overly memorable album. It was okay. I kind of breezed through it. But yeah. I saved You Know Who Your Friends Are, which I do think is quite nice. Complex Person, Fools Must Die, kind of nice, I like it. I Should Have Been Losing, which I think is okay, and Saving Grace. But yeah, it's not thrilling. It's not really what you come to know from the Pretenders in their heyday.
No.
And sure, you don't also want to see them just doing the same thing over and over again.
But you don't want reggae either.
No, quite. I didn't really interpret it as reggae until you said it, so I'm going to have to sort of... I mean, I'm not likely to go and listen to it again, but I might give the songs that I like a go again and think, do I think they're reggae? Because that's quite an interesting take, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, God. This is like... these back-to-backs are the hardest for me to talk about, because my number 7 is another pretty controversial one, maybe even more so than Get Close. It's Pretenders 2.
It's okay,
my number 7.
We've synced up.
Have we?
We have. I'm also a number 7 with Pretenders 2.
Wow, we're both in the shit. So to me, I'll let you talk about it in a minute. I think it's quite the anomaly. It doesn't really sound like any of their other albums, which in itself gave it points for me because I there was a lot of albums that sounded exactly the same. It's more sort of into this like post-punk, almost like early The Cure or Joy Division, that kind of scene is where they're going. But with Chrissie Hynde's vocals, which creates a nice sort of dichotomy, because she's still got this nice pretty voice. I think this is like her vocals sound great on this album, obviously, and does have some really good standout tracks. I think Talk of the Town is the big one. I also like I Go to Sleep and Message of Love. The one thing I noted about this album is that the songs do drag.
Yes, they're very long.
Well, they're only all about like 4 minutes, but they feel a lot longer. Like it feels like you're listening to like 6 minutes of a song. You're like, Jesus, come on. And it's I think you've talked about songwriting already. I think I don't love the songwriting of the Pretenders a lot of the time, apart from the best of the best stuff, obviously. I just think a lot of these songs are a bit lazily written, underwritten maybe. They just sort of just have a chorus and then just the rest of the song happens, I guess. And then the chorus is repeated like 3 or 4 times, and then it's a bit mind-numbing when you don't like the song. When you do like the song, that's great.
Oh yeah, no, you love that. But then, if they haven't got that right, then it's kind of screwed.
So it's also
Loose Screw.
It's also a 6 for me. I think it's unspectacular, but there are some good songs to take away. I think in terms of like sound, it's better than Get Close, but I think the best songs on Get Close are better than the best songs on Pretenders 2. So these two are quite close for me.
Interesting. I've also got it at a 6, incidentally. Yeah. I agree. The songs drag. None of them are particularly noteworthy. I think a lot of its problem is they don't really come out of the comfort zone at all. All the songs are kind of doing a similar thing.
Yeah.
Which is a problem if you're not really liking that thing that they keep on doing. And what I think is interesting, when the debut came out, they've obviously got that sound, and it hasn't come up for either of us yet, so we'll come to that. And then I think once you come to do a second album, you think, well, what worked? What do you need to improve? And I think Pretenders had quite a rough around the edges sound, and then for Pretenders 2, they're like, let's make it rougher.
Yeah.
And then they did that, and then they were like, oh shit, best not do that again.
And then, yeah.
And then they went in a direction that they ended up going in with Learning to Crawl. I think the reason why we're going to get in a bit of shit for it is because obviously it's got Pete Farnd and James Honeyman Scott, who are seen as the classic lineup, even though they're only on 2 albums, and obviously it's out of their control the reasons why they weren't on any more. But that's probably, it's seen as like a memorial almost. It's the last album that they did, and so that's why I did feel bad having it as low as it is, but I can't get around the fact that I didn't overly enjoy the album. I wanted to like mad, especially having done the first one, which obviously hasn't come up yet. We'll get to it. Calm down. Yeah, unfortunately it just didn't live up to the expectations I had of the Honeyman Scott Farndon era, and so that's why it sort of fell where it is.
I think also a reason it gets put up there is because of that sort of post-punk sound, that sort of like, they're doing punk but with a bit less energy, and it's a bit more dreary, and that's very popular amongst critics. It's that movement, you know, like I mentioned, bands like Joy Division and the early Cure stuff, people love, and any band of that time, like, I guess it's a more cool genre than the sort of jangly pop sort of new wave that they were doing elsewhere. So yeah, I think it's just got cool points for the reason you said, and the genre reasons as well. And I don't really think, apart from like Talk of the Town and I Go to Sleep, I don't think there are any real good songs on there. But
we're in agreement.
Yeah, my number 6. We're getting a little bit better. We're still at a 6 out of 10.
Right.
It's Viva El Amor, which I'm surprised neither of us have mentioned yet.
Yeah.
Because this is sort of, to get close being their most 80s sounding album, this is their most 90s sounding album. It's probably why I like it more to get close. I think it opens really, really well. I think Popstar and Human open the album so well. Both important here, catchy and memorable, and with charismatic vocals, which all the Pretenders' best songs do have.
Yeah.
There are a couple of times, I didn't really mention it, but in the later albums that are near the bottom, where Chrissie Hynde gets a little bit annoying, and she just sort of adds like little... She's overdoing the charisma side of it, but it feels very natural in the earlier albums. I think they channel that on Viva El Amor. There's some nice guitar work as well. I was reading that after, from sort of Pact onwards, the lineup was a bit more fluid.
Yeah.
Around Chrissie Hynde.
I'm not 100% certain. Is Martin Chambers on this album?
I don't know.
Because he's he's on and off with it. I think he's not. I don't think he's drumming on this.
So yeah, it's but there's some nice guitar work, and there's sort of a good band feel. It starts really strong. It does kind of tail off a little bit. It ends well, though, I think, with Biker, which is a really great sentimental song to close the album on. Maybe my favourite on the album. It's solid, again, unspectacular. Some good tracks, good sound. I was close to a 7, but I'm sticking with a 6 just because I see the other albums I got at a 7. I think, nah.
Fair enough. My number 6 is also at a 6. We're at the halfway point now, and we're banging in the middle.
Not really getting to the good stuff yet.
No. Yeah. My number 6 is one you've already mentioned. It's Last of the Independents, which I had high expectations for, knowing I'll Stand By You, that weren't really delivered upon. Because like you said, I can't remember which album it was, but it was Get Close. You had a song you liked from it, and you were expecting it, and you didn't get it. Yeah. Which I also had with Depeche Mode and Precious.
Yeah.
With Playing the Angel, I thought I'd get more of that, and I didn't.
And Some Great Reward.
Yeah. But I didn't get any more. That was a totally different track from the rest of the album. Yeah. The rest of the album is very consistent, if we're being tactful, with the rest of their discography. Which is another way of saying it was quite boring. Yeah.
Apart from, I think Hollywood Perfume, the opener, is a bit more rocking,
I saved that. I also saved Night in My Veins, Money Talk, Revolution, All My Dreams, I'll Stand By You, I'm a Mother, Every Mother Sung, Love Colours. I think Love Colours is all right. And Forever Young, the cover, I did save it. I did.
Well, you didn't know the original, maybe, so...
No, I'm not that into Bob Dylan. I haven't explored him that much, so, yeah. but they've done covers before and pulled it off, which we'll come to.
Yeah, we will come to for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was okay. We're at a 6, but as you know by my precedent that I've set with my ranking, we're still not going great guns with the Pretenders. Yeah. And, you know, it's getting to a point now where I feel kind of guilty that I put us through this. But at least it's made for some interesting discussion.
Well, yeah.
And there are some good bits. Like, as we get near the top, you'll see a jump.
And most of these albums, I on my songs list, I have 9 of the 11 albums represented. So
right. That's more than me.
Yeah, so that's quite good.
Right.
Top 5, and now I've noticed this, we both have one of the last 2 albums in our top 5, which I don't think many people would have. The one I have, Sam had much lower, is Alone, is my number 5.
Yeah.
2016 album, another year that I consider one of the greatest in music history. And even though I give this a 7 out of 10, would it make my top 25 of that year? Probably not. It's pretty good for what it is. It's good for this late in their career. I like the sound. You sort of mentioned it being a bit more fast-paced and louder. And I do kind of see what you're saying. But I don't know, I like the... It was produced by the lead singer of the Black Keys, who are a sort of blues rock revival band.
All right.
So it kind of makes sense why they went more into that kind of sound. And I don't know, I enjoyed that it sounded different to what had come before, which will be a trend with my number 5, 4, and 3. But yeah, I think it does have some really, like, I think Never Be Together is like a really gentle, lovely song, and Blue Eyed Sky with all the acoustic guitar. So even though there are the louder songs, you have these quieter moments as well. Because acoustic guitar before the album before this wasn't really a big part of their sound, and it's an instrument that I obviously love and I'm kind of biased towards. Also think Death Is Not Enough really stands out. Just good album. Am I going to rush to listen to it again? Probably not, but if it was on, I would probably enjoy it. So that's my glowing review for Alone. 7 out of 10.
Right, well, you've got to a 7 quicker than me. I'm still at a 6.
Oh, wow.
My number 5.
Oh, wow. This has really gone badly for you.
And yet it was my suggestion. Yeah. That's the irony.
You made your own grave. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
See, because before you get to it, I actually thought, because when we talked about Depeche Mode, I actually rewatched the Depeche Mode video recently. And when we're talking about Sounds of the Universe, and you said, well, you could play about Sammy. I like Sammy. And
yeah, this has tested that theory.
Exactly.
This has definitely tested that theory. What have you got next? My number 5 is Viva El Amor.
Oh yeah, we're not far off on that.
No, we are not. Yeah. Which I did think was very interesting. Mm-hmm. Interesting in the sense that I actually found I liked it. Mm-hmm. I saved quite a lot from there. I saved Human, From the Heart Down, Who's Who, Dragway 42 I thought was pretty good. Baby's Breath, Legalize Me, Samurai, Rabo de Noob, and Biker. I thought it was doing something quite interesting. And coming through onto the second half of the discography, which I was dreading, I thought this is actually going to be all right. Maybe she does keep it going, kind of like Depeche Mode. No, kind of gets abandoned here. Although I do have an album after this higher up in the list, as you've probably gathered, but we'll get to that. Viva El Amor, it's a 6. Basically everything I've said about the other albums is kind of here. It's just, I think some of the songs on this album are a bit more of a standout than some of the songs in the others. There are some more memorable tracks on there, such as Dragway 42 and Human, which I think are pretty good and pretty listenable. They're half decent. So that's how come it's got to the top end of the 6s. Now that we're in the top 4, I'm going to start being a little bit more praising. And for those people who've come onto the video to hear some Pretenders
I'm sorry.
We're getting to the good stuff now, right?
So my number 4, don't worry, Sam, I'm not going to be completely insane, only a little bit insane. My number 4 is Break Up the Concrete. 2008, their 9th album, another 7 for me. I will say I completely understand what you mean about it, because I will say, this isn't me just saying it now. I actually predicted before we started that this would be Sam's bottom. As soon as the album started, I was like, Sam is going to hate this. Because it's more of, it's again, like Pretenders 2, it's a bit of an anomaly. Yeah. They're sort of doing this more sort of Americana, like, folky sound, which again, very me, more so than you. Yes. I think Boots of Chinese Plastic is, to me, a classic Pretenders song. I think it's up there with some of their best of their original era. I think there's so much swagger to it, and it opens the album so well. I think The Nothing Maker is also good, but an absolutely terrible song title.
I saved that.
Yeah,
though, at least.
there we go. I actually wrote down that I really like the title track, but that it gets stuck in my head all the time.
Yeah,
so
bring up the
similar thing there. I think it's a simple change, maybe a little bit gimmicky. Is probably why it's fallen down. Even though I like the sound, it does feel like a little bit desperate. Is why I would say, because Loose Screw had just happened where they tried something different, it didn't work, and then they came to this and like, let's try something else, because they were just getting very stale at this point. And I think this obviously this and Alone came back to back, was a good era for me. I was enjoying that, and then Hate for Sale came and I was like, okay, all right. So Break Up the Concrete is number 4 for me. I think it's good. I'm still not over the moon about it, but I liked it. I don't really care that you had it at the bottom.
No, even though it's number 4. Well, okay.
This isn't another Nursery Crime and Foxtrot.
No, we don't care as much.
Yeah.
My number 4, which is an album you've showed a bit of chagrin towards, it's Hate for Sale. But you should be pleased at least to know that it didn't make middle position, because it definitely didn't deserve that. The title track is pretty crap. Hey for sale, hey for sale.
It sounds like the Sex Pistols.
Yeah,
which is not a compliment.
That's not a tagline. No. Chrissy Hind is a woman.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I thought personally the half an hour flew by, but it definitely worked in its favour that it was a shorter album. I remember hearing some of the tracks on the radio when it came out, so that kind of gave me a bit of bias towards it. I saved every track.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a 7?
Yeah, we're up to a 7. It's pretty good. Would I recommend it? No. But if you do happen to listen to it, I'll go, it wasn't bad, was it?
I'm sorry, Chrissy Hind, if you somehow find this video.
I love you, Chrissy Hind.
Actually, fuck you, Chrissy Hind, for making me listen to all these albums. Why did you make so many albums?
I think the problem with the Pretenders, for the most part, apart from the stuff that they're really known for, is it kind of lacks identity.
Yes. Because, like I said, Break Up the Concrete, Viva El Amor, and Loose Screw, I think there were 3 back-to-back albums. They sound like they're from 3 different bands.
Yeah.
It's like...
And I think that's why people cling on to the early albums, because having Hind, Chambers, Honeyman, Scott and Farndon, it's something to kind of cling on to as a band's identity. Whereas as time goes on, you kind of just have Chrissy Hind. Even though Martin Chambers is there, it's kind of he's done a bit dirty. I think, especially later on in the Pretenders' career, because he was there from the beginning. And I can't remember which album it was, but I think it might be either Loose Screw or Alone. He didn't even know it was being recorded until like halfway through, and there's a lot of differing opinion as to whether or not he actually did know about it or not. Because Chrissy Hind says, he found our next drummer, and he's just like, well, that's news to me. But then later on down the line, he said, oh, well, I did kind of go, okay, you do your thing. And then I just kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
And I think, he is part of the band's identity. He's one of the founding members. And if you're kind of doing him dirty like that, it's like, it gets hard to find an identity with it. It's hard to relate to it and connect to it.
I think I could say this safely now. Past the first 3 albums, I'm giving a very generous pass to Pretenders 2 here.
Yeah.
Past the first 3 albums, you could just call all these albums Chrissy Hind albums.
Yeah.
I don't think, I think calling them Pretenders albums is a bit dishonest and to get more sales.
Yeah.
So
it's a name, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a recognisable name.
I'm really sorry if you're a Pretenders super fan.
I know.
Yeah.
I do like the Pretenders. Yeah. If people had said it to me in the street about what kind of bands you like, I'd probably list Pretenders. You wouldn't know that from watching this video and hearing my critique.
We'll get
medals now, so it should start to get good.
My number 3, that should be the motto for our show. We're in medals now, so it should start to get good. My number 3, another album that you didn't like, Pact.
Exclamation mark.
1990. Was their 5th album. Another 7, unfortunately. I'm stuck in the 7s. I think it starts really strong with Never Do That, which is one you mentioned you liked. I think what you're saying is fair. It's quite generic sounding, very sort of hushed and sort of calm and soothing. But I enjoyed that. I think it is just a very mellow listen. I did actually have quite a few songs that I enjoyed. My big favourite was Sense of Purpose, which you didn't mention, which breaks my heart a little bit. That's fine. There's a lovely warm sound to it, that song, and a really catchy chorus. I think the live track Criminal closes the album really, really nicely. Yeah, I think the difference with this one is that there wasn't like there was half the album is good and then half the album is fine.
Right,
so
yeah.
that's kind of that was enough to get it to a number 3. I don't really understand the negative reception held by not only critics and fans but also you. But I guess it's just me being weird. I actually quite like Pact, and I think it's better than the 2 albums either side of it, which will probably get me in some hot water. But that is my number 3.
It's quite funny that you are also upset that Sense of Purpose isn't a song I mentioned, because so is Spotify. Because I've come to the bottom of the playlist. It's going recommended songs, Sense of Purpose, and then like there's one track in between, and then the next one is Sense of Purpose live. It's like really, you didn't like Sense of Purpose, but apparently not. Right, I'm going to start singing Pretender's praise now. The top 3 albums for me are albums that I recommend.
Right.
They're albums that I enjoyed. My bronze medal.
Oh, he's getting the record out.
Yes, I do actually own 2 Pretenders albums on vinyl.
So that shows that you at least like them a lot.
Or at least going into it, I thought I liked them. My bronze medal goes to Pretenders, the debut. Which I mentioned earlier that I think that they were quite aggressive in their sound with the debut, and then they took a direction in with that for Pretenders 2 and it failed. It works here. It's their debut. They're kind of showing themselves to be a bit of a rough and ready kind of band, and I'm here for it. It's a really good listen. Some of the songs are a little bit okay, but there are some absolute bangers on this. Obviously, Stop Your Sobbing. That's the cover I was talking about earlier that I think they really pull off.
I didn't know that was a cover. That was not the cover I was talking about.
Oh,
so
right.
we'll
That's
see.
a cover from the Kinks. Who?
Is it?
Yeah. The Kinks or the Kooks?
Not the Kooks.
The Kinks. Because she was romantically involved in the 70s with Ray Davis, who gave her a guitar.
Huh?
So, and in return, I guess she covered one of his songs with it.
I did not know that was a cover.
Or it's the other way around. Yeah, good song though.
Yeah.
I don't actually know the original very well. I think I've heard it in passing and gone, I prefer the Pretenders one. And I really do. It's a really good song. And also I liked Brass in Pocket. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
The last 3 tracks, because it includes that, I think are a really good listen. Particularly Mystery Achievement. I liked Precious is interesting. Probably wouldn't choose to listen to it, but in album context it works. Space Invader and The Wait, they're pretty good. Space Invader I think is an instrumental, and it's quite interesting. The sound is unique. And Up the Neck is another one that I'd recommend as well. But the album in general is a really good listen, even if the tracks aren't necessarily stand out for you to pick out. I think if you listen to them all in order, it's a really interesting experience, and I would recommend it. It's still only a 7. But it's the last 7, and that's as much as I have to say about it. Yeah, I thought so. Silverman. I was waiting.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would need to put it down.
So my number 2 is Pretenders, which one of the more interesting things about this album is that the release date is disputed. Some sites put it as 1979, and some sites put it as 1980. How fascinating.
Who remembers when this was released, please? Someone with maybe expertise in the 70s.
I have it down as a 1980 release, because that's what Rate Your Music said, and that's what I usually go off.
Yeah.
Because that's what I use to
That's your thing.
rate things. Unfortunately, it's my number 2, but it's also still just a 7. I think it's good. I feel really bad, because I'm still going in on the Pretenders. This is lauded as like one of the greatest debut albums of all time. And I don't really see it. In parts, absolutely. As a whole, listen, there's how many tracks? 12, right? 12 tracks?
I haven't counted.
Something like that.
We are so bad at this.
12 tracks. Yeah, no, we're great at this. There is 12 tracks. I was going to say 13, but there's 12.
Well, lucky for
and I find some tracks pretty disposable. And I do, I think Tattooed Love Boys is a bit crap. And Precious is a decent opener. I do enjoy it. But yeah, there's a bit too much fluff on this for me, and I found that, like I've mentioned, I prefer Chrissy Hynde's voice on the slower songs. But I can't deny that this has some classic songs on it. Brass in Pocket is the obvious one, the big hit. Everybody knows it.
It's a great song.
Even if you don't think you know it, you listen to it and you know it. You know, it's one of those. It's a classic for a reason. I'll leave it at that because I'm sure we'll both be talking about it later.
Indeed.
Stop You Sobbing. Didn't know it was a cover, but it stands out. Very, very fun. That sort of hook is very sort of nice.
Catchy.
I also listed Mystery Achievement as my final of the trifecta of my favourite songs on it.
So we found a lot of common ground.
Yeah, I like that song a lot. And yeah, it's got high highs, but do I think it's a classic album? No. Would I recommend it? Sure. Listen to this at least once and then make your own mind up, because it is a much talked about album. It has quite the reputation, and it's a very iconic album cover as well.
And the back is quite fun too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wish I liked it more, because, to be honest, we did the Pretenders, and this was the one where I was like, all right, I'm going to love this one, because obviously I knew it was a long discography, and then I was like, yeah, it was good, and then it was just kind of,
this is the one I was really pinning my hopes on.
Yeah, so unfortunately it is silver medal at 7. Again, it's good. Give it a listen if you haven't. You probably already have, and you hate me now. So
what a way that we're kicking off 2023.
Yeah. So hopefully, there is something to be taken away from this video.
Yeah.
Because if there's not, we're fucked.
Right. Okay. So my silver medal. Right. Look, I'm just gonna cut to the chase. Right. It's one that's come up, which means we have the same number one.
Okay. Whew.
But yeah, it's Get Close. My silver medal goes to Get Close. Yeah. Which I clearly liked a lot more than you did. Mm-hmm. I'm at an 8 because the only song I knew on it was Don't Get Me Wrong, which is a classic. Mm-hmm. But I actually found a couple songs from it that I'm really into now. Mm. And ironically, it's the two songs that you were like, Concert Ready, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Arena Ready. And it was My Baby, which really sent my hopes and expectations for the album at the top, because it came out with that. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a great album. This is going to be number 1. And then the rest of the album was kind of meh.
My Baby is good. It's just the sound for me that the song itself is good. Yeah.
I love it. And Don't Get Me Wrong obviously kept me going. Yeah. The second track, I can't remember what it was called, but it was okay. But then it kind of went downhill from there. But the sound for me works. 80s guy. It's not a surprise it's low for you and high for me, because it's exactly what we did with Invisible Touch, which you've compared it to.
but at least this got a lot higher than Invisible Touch. Yeah. And it had some standout songs for sure.
And the other one that I really liked was Him to Her.
Yeah.
Which is a nice slow song.
It's a fan favourite, I think, that song. Yeah.
And yeah, there's some really good ones on it for me. I enjoyed Traditional Love, and I enjoyed the other 3 that I've already mentioned. For a silver medal album, though, I can't really compare it to other ones that I've
I was just going to say, other than
two.
Elliott Smith, it's probably your weakest silver medal.
Yeah. But I think I'd listen to it again.
Yeah. An 8 would suggest that.
Yeah, I'd do it again and probably get more out of it next time. I guess because I had such high expectations once I listened to My Baby, maybe I was a little bit more critical of the album, but I still got a lot out of it and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's got an 8 from me.
Well, yeah, I guess
I'll just prop that there.
Yeah. Don't know how well you can see that.
No, but
it's there.
Yeah.
Honestly, this was a pretty easy number 1 for me, especially my relative disappointment of the debut album. I knew this was the only album I knew in already going in, so it's quite a sad state of affairs of my discovery of the Pretenders. However, I almost at a 9 on this, but then I thought, is it better than The Colour of Spring? Is it better than some other albums like Hard Day's Night or Help? No. So it's at that level. I like it as much as albums I hold near and dear to my heart from artists I absolutely love. But it is still only an 8, which is not very high for a number 1. That said, great album. I'm quite a harsh marker sometimes. So
yeah.
I think it is another familiar story where not every track is an absolute banger. but I think the ratio on this album is
Stronger.
much better. I may as well just go through the track list, and because we may as well channel this positivity while we
come on then.
We love the front. I love the front cover, but I think the back cover is really cool as well. I think it really stands out. Obviously, an album made from really tragic circumstances, but the new lineup absolutely nailed it. I would go as far as to say this is the best sort of band feel, the best chemistry on any Pretenders album. Some of those guitar lines, oh my god, so good. And I think it has one of the best 1-2 opening tracks to any album I've ever heard, genuinely. And I'm not just exaggerating to be nice to Pretenders fans. Middle of the Road and Back on the Chain Gang doesn't really get much better than that. The Middle of the Road is just really just stomping opener, and you get the harmonica, which is just adds such a great layer to it. Back on the Chain Gang,
great song,
has been talked about to death, and for good reason.
It's a fitting tribute.
Yeah, and it's also you can sort of apply it to like a relationship in your life as well. It's not sort of grounded in being about grief, you know?
Yes.
So it sort of holds loads of different meanings, and that is truly an absolute triumph of songwriting, as much as I've criticised Chrissy Hind.
Yeah, for having lazy songwriting.
But that is
That's
anything
not...
but, and that is the one where the guitar really stands out. The guitar part of that song is just
the way
iconic.
it comes in.
Yeah. Time the Avenger and Watching the Clothes are both good. Watching the Clothes, singing a song about watching clothes go around in a washing machine is a bit interesting, but it's still fun, you know. And then Show Me, actually, I wrote that down, that it gives me ABBA vibes in the sort of the vocal of it, which is kind of cool. It's sort of a bit more whimsical than a lot of their other songs. Then side 2, not quite as good, but side 1 was bloody good already. So Thumbelina is good. My City Was Gone it's sort of more of a jamming track. Like it's less about the songwriting, more about the band themselves playing, and the bass line of that song is just fantastic. The cover I was going to talk about was Thin Line Between Love and Hate, which is a cover of a soul song, and it's very different for them. I think it is very well placed on the album in the middle of side 2. Sort of shows a different dynamic to Chrissy's vocals. And then obviously ends on 2,000 Miles, which, if you saw the Christmas video, you know we both absolutely adore.
Yes, exactly.
So, just pretty great album. I would say this is deserving of classic status. If I was making a book, 1,001 albums you need to hear before you die, this would be on here. Yay. It's an essential listen, I think. Even if, you know, I'm not head over heels in love with it, I still think it's very great. Very great. And and the best songs on it are some of the best songs of 1984, which is another very good year for music. So I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, so I'm also an 8.
Oh,
so
really?
You're not as harsh as you think. I agree with you. Those first 3 tracks for me were really good. I actually got more outside too than you did. I think My City Was Gone is very low and all that. I really enjoyed that, and I Hurt You. I think if you don't want to listen to a Christmas song outside of Christmas, then that's a good way to sort of turn off a record player. I think it works as a closing track. But for God's sake, 2,000 Miles can be listened to all year round. Yeah. It's a classic song. It's a beautiful song about long distance love, in my opinion. And in this case, it's a tribute also to James Honeyman Scott, who feel very far away, obviously. And it's just so sweet. And overall, I think that the album is very sweet because it's coming out, like you said, really trying circumstances. And it feels like a personal triumph against grief, in my opinion, because they still come out and not just release some really good songs to kind of memorialise the members of the band who've come before, but also they're showing that they can still have fun with some of the more interesting tracks, such as
Watching the Clothes.
Yes, indeed, Watching the Clothes, and My City Was Gone, which I think, like you said, has got this bit jamming sort of feel, and it shows a sort of closeness.
What I will say is that, you know, as much as I can rag and say this should have been the last Pretenders album and all the others should have been Chrissy Hind solo albums, but what I will say is that it is, like you said, it's a triumph in terms of not only coming forth and bringing out good songs, but your best set of songs in your entire career in the face of such tragedy and difficult circumstances. And a lineup change is never easy either.
Especially when it's half the band.
Half the band, yeah. So, Learn to Crawl, a double number 1. We both really like it.
There's 2 sync-ups in this.
Yeah. So, let us know if you hate us now, because I'm sure there will be some Pretenders fans coming in. Or let us know if you kind of feel silly to us, like you feel like you don't quite get as much out of the album tracks as the singles with the Pretenders, because I definitely felt that way in parts.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is how it goes in the show. We never really know what to expect. I actually came in here feeling bad because I thought you were going to love this and I was going to be here the one spoiling the party, but we were quite similar in terms of the overall...
we've basically agreed, because our ranking hasn't really mattered too much to each other where we've put things, apart from having this at the top, obviously, because it is a massive standout. As you can see, I got it for £6, so I was quite pleased with that.
Which is, you know... It's the first time that's happened, really.
Yeah.
Usually one of us is... really loving it.
Yeah. Or one of us is really hating it, or we're both loving it.
Roxy Music was... I think I enjoyed Roxy Music more than this. Maybe it helped that there was less albums.
More than this.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say about the Pretenders is they are deserving of the reputation that they have for the songs that everyone knows being as popular as they are. Because those songs are brilliant. But for me, as a professional music critic... Really not claiming to be.
For the purposes of this show, they're not the best artists to do.
Those songs, they have that reputation for a reason, because they are the best by a long way that they put out. And if those are the only ones you know, that's really only as far as you need to go.
This album has some good deep cuts.
Yeah, go try this one.
Yeah.
And if you feel like it, try the other one, Pretenders, that we both ranked highly.
Yeah.
I'd also recommend Get Close. If you're into the 80s, if you agreed with me that Invisible Touch was good, then...
Not many people did.
Not many people did. But for the one person watching this that did, check that out. Or at least check out the big songs that I mentioned, like My Baby, Don't Get Me Wrong, and Hymn to Her. Because I didn't know two of those. And so I'm happy that I listened to the album for the reason of getting those songs in my head.
Well, thank you for watching and
Sorry
tolerating.
for watching.
Yeah, sorry for watching. Thank you for tolerating. And we can announce that the next episode with Sam hopefully won't be too far away, because it's only a 6-album discography, and we're going to be tackling the Cardigans, which should be quite interesting.
Yeah.
We might also double up on discographies on that day. That might be an idea, since we've done that before. We haven't discussed this beforehand. I'm just sort of dumping this idea
but
on
I'm
now.
definitely up for that.
Yeah, so, and of course, I had a big plan before the new year happened of discographies, but we're still going to have the Rush ranking and the Weezer ranking before then with Ryan. Then Rush with Tavi and Clay will come in the next couple of months, as well as Harry Nielsen with Vanessa and Chris. So a lot of exciting stuff, as well as a new series, which you can stay tuned for, which Sam will be joining me on the first episode of that as well. So, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
And, any Pretenders fans, don't take us too seriously. We don't know what we're talking about. So, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again for another one.
Please come back.